Every night, light bulbs brighten our world. But did you know that some bulbs can keep shining for years? Inside the small light bulb we use every day, there is amazing science hidden inside. Old light bulbs often burned out and needed to be replaced, but LED bulbs can last much longer. So, what makes these two bulbs different? What is actually happening inside an LED? How does it create the bright light that we see? First, let's look at the old-style incandescent bulb. This bulb created light by heating a metal wire until it became extremely hot. When electricity flows through an incandescent bulb, a thin metal wire called a filament becomes hot and creates light. However, this process produces a lot of heat, but the extremely hot filament slowly becomes weaker and wears out over time. Eventually, the wire breaks and the bulb can no longer produce light. So how is LED different? LEDs create light in a completely different way without burning a hot metal wire. Instead of using a filament, LEDs use a special component called a semiconductor. This tiny part converts electricity into light. When electricity enters an LED, tiny particles inside the semiconductor begin to move. This movement creates energy that becomes the light we see. The biggest difference between incandescent bulbs and LEDs is heat. How efficiently they use energy determines their lifespan. Incandescent bulbs turn a large amount of electricity into heat instead of light. That is why they become hot and waste energy. But LEDs convert most of their energy into light. That means they create the same brightness while producing much less heat. Less heat means less stress on the components. That is why the parts inside an LED can work for a much longer time. But LEDs cannot last forever. The internal components also slowly change over time. The biggest enemy of an LED is heat. If the temperature stays too high, the internal circuits can become damaged. That is why LED bulbs include heat-dissipating parts that move heat away from the inside. The aluminum heat sink spreads heat out and prevents the LED from becoming too hot. This is similar to how our bodies release heat when we are hot. LEDs also need to control heat to last longer. That is why LED bulbs can usually last for tens of thousands of hours. They can keep shining for years even with daily use. Even in normal situations where they are used several hours every day, LEDs can provide a long lifespan. Because they last longer, we do not need to replace bulbs as often. This saves time and resources. LEDs also use less electricity while producing the same brightness. This can help reduce energy costs. Using less energy reduces unnecessary power consumption and helps protect the environment. Inside one small bulb, there is amazing technology involving semiconductors, electricity, and heat control. An LED shines not because of hot metal, but because of the movement of tiny particles that we cannot see. The bright light we see begins from a tiny invisible world. This is the secret science behind LEDs. That is why LEDs last longer, are more efficient, and continue to develop as the lighting technology of the future. Next time you see an LED bulb, remember this. Even a small light can contain amazing science. Why is there such amazing science inside a small bulb that allows it to shine for so long? See you in the next science story.